Keep 100% of your claim. G4 Claims.
If you've been hurt in a road accident that wasn't your fault, you should really talk to G4 Claims first. Unlike road accident solicitors, we don't charge you for our services, which could see you better off. To keep 100% of your compensation, have a chat with Nicole and the team. You'll be glad you did. Search online for G4 Claims.
Keep 100% of your claim. G4 Claims.
Hi and welcome to this week's episode of the DW podcast. I am joined by Kerso. For those that have heard of Kerso, for those that are into the casual scene with into their clothes, this man needs no introduction. For those that maybe haven't and listen to this podcast regularly, let me give you a wee introduction. So before we started recording, I said to Kerso, what would you say, bring some of the best bits of your collection? And he says, I'm not a collector. And I've heard him say this many, many times, so I'm going to read you a little paragraph here from Collective Disorder, and this is by Kerso himself. You're the trainer collector guy, aren't you? No, for the 1000th time, I'm not the fucking trainer collecting guy, but I do wear trainers, have done for more than 30 years, just like everybody else I know who's my age. The difference between them and me is that in July 1978, I, or rather my mum, bought a pair of Adidas joggers for me to go on holiday, and this is where my appreciation, not a collection, of trainers began and continues to this day. How is that?
Perfect. Can you put it better myself?
Does that sum it up?
Pretty much, aye. Nothing against collectors, but a collector for me is somebody that buys something to actually be able to look at it enough, so 1 of 10 is I just love trainers. And I discovered early doors that you buy a pair of trainers and you wear them to death and then chuck them away. Don't have 3 pairs, rotate them, and you'll always have them, and you'll never, it's like it was a very simple equation, and that's basically how I ended up with so many. I always say to people, how many pair of trainers? Like, no, it doesn't matter. It's like, how many pairs of trainers have you bought over the last 30 years? And I'm like, hundreds. Exactly, it's like, I've just not chucked any away. And literally people would have the same amount if they had kept them all. It's an easy way to look at it.
I think one of the things that is a problem for people, and you've always went through this yourself, is where do you keep them? And you've had to convert your loft.
Absolutely. And again, the space is always a problem, but I've got these Habitat boxes which have 4 pairs in each, and then there's other boxes which have 3 pairs in each, and then other ones which have 2 pairs in each. Unlike people who like their trainers box fresh, I wouldn't have the room, you wouldn't be able to move. But again, it's kind of getting to the stage where the garage is bursting, the loft's bursting. It's probably just as well that I've kind of pared back a bit.
Let's take it way back to the start and where this began for you. You've brought this 1978
Adidas footwear catalogue. This was... I got this in the 90s from a friend, and it was like, that's a jogger, that was the ones that started it, and it was the ones that started it for me. I totally adored these things, because up to then, every pair of trainers you had, it was like Mars bar trainers, work, rest, play, absolutely kicked playing football and stuff like this, but these, I actually got them for going on holiday, and they were a thing of beauty, and I literally wore them till they fell off my feet.
Adidas joggers?
There wasn't a bit of suede on them, and from that point it was like, you just appreciated it. I don't know if it was the colours or whatever, because at the same time there was a guy at my school who had Adidas Hawaii, which are effectively the same trainer but in a different colourway, and it was like, right, you don't want to be kicking a muddy ball in these.
Aye.
So it was basically like a light bulb going up in the head. These were a fashion item, and they looked amazing. And from then, it kind of grew.
What age were you then?
12.
Right, honestly,
Yeah, just kind of started going to Fir Park, and I was lucky enough that my best mate, he was Catholic, I was Protestant. Both sets of parents were absolutely delighted when we started going Motherwell, because they didn't want us to go down the whole sectarian route. We played football together, but his mum and dad were brilliant, because at the time Motherwell were in the first division. Rather than have us kicking about every second week, they would take us to away games. Really? And they would go shopping while we went to the game.
No way.
You learn to grow up pretty quickly when you realise you're in the wrong end at St Johnstone, and it's like there's people want to kill you because you're wearing a Motherwell scarf. But it was great because they literally took us Ayr, St Johnstone, Dundee, whatever, And for 1978, it was the Motherwell thing. And obviously you got to wear something, so you got a nice new pair of trainers or whatever. So that was kind of it. And kind of how it moved on to the whole obsession thing was, I'd been playing football for the school, and then in Motherwell for Terrace and stuff like that. And every year we seemed to go a lot abroad.
Right.
Going to Denmark, Belgium, and every place you went, there was Intersport trainer shops. And it was
Before Intersports came here.
Always wanted to bring back, if it was a pair of fit boots, it was a pair of trainers.
Sure.
Something different to what everybody else had. And that mentality has just stayed from then. Always wanted to be something a wee bit different for everybody else.
I remember reading, I think it was reading or listening to an interview you done, you says, about the trip to Denmark. And you were like, everybody piled off the bus. And
Jefferson Youth Club, under 14s. I mean, basically, you know, like, it was Motherwell, you know, everybody was just like totally hyper, and they did literally put the trainers and the boots out in pairs.
Big
there was one
mistake.
person who worked at this big sports shop, and it was carnage, man. Everybody come back with something. I got a pair of Alan Seams and Puma boots, but I paid for mine. I didn't have the balls to actually. I didn't have the balls to steal them. Everybody was just literally leaving behind their crappy old trainers on the rack and walking out and he's clacking up down the street. I always remember Brian Stark got a pair of these Patrick silver kangaroo skin boots. I don't know what they were called, but it was the first time we'd ever seen anything like that. It was like, my God. Things are beauty, do you know what I mean? But it broadened the mind, put it that way.
you touched on the Motherwell thing there, you know, this is 78 that you're talking about.
Yep.
I suppose 83 was probably the big changing point for you.
Yep.
Formation of Motherwell Saturday Service. How did that affect your life?
To be honest, it was pretty organic, because when you're actually on the ground, you don't actually realise this is kind of happening. But all the guys I was playing football with were from Motherwell, and they were like, got to DL Braidhurst or whatever, but I was for Bellshill. But the good thing about that was before, it was actually really dodgy for me to come into Motherwell, because it's hard to explain to people now would understand. The gang culture was huge. I mean, it was like there was two gangs in Bellshill, Tartan Toy and the Moss Cross, right? And it was like when you're 12-year-old, 10-year-old, it's like it seems a laugh, but thinking about it now, it was like every weekend we'd go down the Calder and it was like Forgewood and Moss End.
Yeah.
And it was full on absolute warfare, do you know what I mean? Literally people getting battered to within an inch of their life. If you were in Motherwell and somebody knew you were from Bellshill, it was like, oh, do you know what I mean? The football took that away. Even to the point that when I was playing with Jefferson, we used to train down at the corner every Wednesday. And for the first couple of years, I used to get chased home every night. We were sitting waiting in the lift, and somebody came out to the Jerry boys, and it was like, Once they knew you for the football, it was fine. It was great. The dressing thing, as I say, I mean, it's been spoken about loads and loads of times about how Steph come up for Leeds and stuff like that. And you don't actually realise it's happening, but sooner or later it's like that. Yellow Pringle's can. So I mean, literally bought my first rig in, and it was like yellow Pringle, pair of bleached jeans, and you just fit in because everybody your age is doing that, and that was the thing. But Motherwell latched on it right away. You know what I mean? It was like Aberdeen, obviously coming down, but at the time it was a mixture, and
at first, for those that are maybe listening to this and thinking, because you know before that you probably had mods, teddy boys, rockers.
14-year-olds, and I embraced the mod thing wholeheartedly.
Sure.
To the point of it being an obsession, you know. It was I was going to be getting made to measure mohair suits and stuff like that, you know, and kind of was totally down the line.
Because
by the time 1983 came along, I was 17. I had my first scooter. I was a scooter boy.
Sure.
I'd kind of get out the mod thing, but strange though it may seem, the scooting thing was huge. I found a member of the 30 Dozen Scooter Club.
Are they still going?
Yeah.
That's
I've
amazing.
got another Vespa just now. It's just about to chop up. But at the time, so thinking about this, it's absolutely mad as well. Casuals on the scooter scene, there was probably about half a dozen, and you're going to a scooter rally with 10,000 people, and basically it was like you were basically
the odd ones out.
Getting battered for everybody. It was like local skinheads, basically scooter boys hated us. You know, I mean, you can imagine it. I remember once drove down to Colwyn Bay, on my own because I couldn't get the day off work. I had to drive down on Friday night. I was driving through Liverpool. I get bricked going through Liverpool with these different scallies just coming out throwing bricks at me because I was on the scooter. I got to Colwyn Bay, couldn't find the rest of the scooter club. Woke up in the morning and basically this time I'd let the old Charlie Nick perm, the old yellow Pringle, bleached jeans, pair of Diodora Masters, and basically spent the whole weekend getting kicked up and down the place by bouncers, local skinheads, other scooter boys, and I was like, why am I doing this? And then you'd see a couple of guys from Norfolk with their full Tashiri tracksuits and Lambrettas, and I'm like, smart as. Surprisingly enough, the only other ones were a couple of guys for Airdrie.
Honestly,
yeah,
no way.
Yeah.
Don't want to admit that.
Sorry?
Don't want to admit that.
So it was a kind of strange time because I was still heavily into the scooter and embraced the whole casual thing, going into the football. But at the time, you don't realise everything you're doing is totally groundbreaking. It's just natural. You're just young. You know what I mean? It's just the norm.
I think that's what I find so fascinating about it, Kerso, because we'll maybe touch on this a wee bit later, but I feel nowadays there's so many people that are clones of each other, right? And back then, to think, if you're turning up at a scooter rally in a yellow Pringle jumper, it's so away from the norm.
Spaceman,
you know,
honestly.
and I don't get how, when people started dressing like that, the rest of them were going, nah, that's no on. That's ridiculous. People embraced it.
Not
Overnight.
People of our age group embraced it because it was new. I mean, like the older generation, you know, like getting fancy hairdos and they didn't realise. And basically, until it came when it was like after the game or whatever, and you're like, but you just felt you were part of a wee select club. You know what I mean? That was a joy. It totally was. Because again, the Motherwell being the size that it is, it never really grew in huge proportions. You know what I mean? It was still the same faces, if truth be told. You know, and kind of everybody knew everybody else.
How did that relate to what was happening on the terraces? I've heard you talk before about a lot of this is to do with, it was the 80s, there was mass unemployment, there was Thatcherism.
It's like, I've been going to the game since 1978, and hard though it is to comprehend, the violence before the casuals was 10 times worse than it ever was during the peak years of the casuals. Mm-hmm. Get on this, it's like, before Fir Park got developed, right, where the East Stand was, basically was split in the middle between home and away fans. Big metal chain fence down the middle. Motherwell End was called the Puppy Den, right, and that's where all the hardcore fans went. At half time, they used to open the back of it so that fans could go behind each goals, because basically people were used to watching their team playing from behind the goals that they want. It was again total carnage. It pissed up people, basically like a full-on riot at half time. Mm-hmm. Whenever Celtic and Rangers came to town, it was like boozed up, thousands of just total thugs, skinheads, you know, punks. The violence literally was 10 times worse than it ever was during the casual. The thing about the casual was it gentrified the violence, if you like. Sure. Because it took a lot of it outside the ground. This rubbish about the range mates, it never harmed. It's like, if you happen to bump into another mob, then fair enough. You know,
it's not like you had phones back then.
As it still is a day, 9 times out of 10, it's just a posture and running. It very rarely comes to, like, you know, actual physical violence. But it did. I mean, it actually civilised it, and took, because the people that were doing it then had got that much older. We were a new generation going through, and it would have been easy for us just to continue drinking wine, getting steaming, going to Celtic Rangers and getting absolutely fully. But it gave a different focus, because it was like, what are you wearing? And I used to love that. See, when Aberdeen came down, man, it was like, what are you wearing? That was the first thing you done. Check it, see if there'd anything new, anything you hadn't seen before. And it was difficult. Not difficult, but it was different times, because you didn't have information on the internet. Yep. Try to find out about stuff. I always talked to my mate Shunter about this. Shunter was one of the first Aberdeen casuals. He used to write to the Sounds. Really? Yeah. Sounds Music Magazine was basically a place where, like, basically people talked about it.
So was Sounds, and what was the other one, The Face?
No. The Face and The End were the two kind of that came out of it. And I think the first article that ever came out was The Face, but it had been going for a wee while at that point. But it's not as if you actually had conversations with guys from other places and stuff like that. So it was all kind of word of mouth, and going down to games in England and seeing what the English guys were wearing as well. Yep. Everybody was heavily influenced by that. But a lot of it just came through guys deciding, I'm going to do something a wee bit different. I mean, Motherwell was like huge for it. I mean, it literally was. Coming up with different fashions every couple of months, and you know, some of them worked, some of them didn't. Guilty it myself, you know. It's like
you hear this
just constantly moving.
You hear the stories of like Liverpool going abroad or Aberdeen going abroad, and that's where they were getting their different fashions from.
Yep.
Motherwell, where did it come from?
The Leeds thing was huge, and again, it's like, I mean, stories told of like guys just literally getting a train into London on a Wednesday, you know, and like coming back up in the overnight one and getting into Set Focus on a Thursday with all this new gear. And like, just basically, they knew the shops that were going to, they knew the labels they wanted. Glasgow was pretty good for it, to be honest. You know, I mean, it was it was a kind of treasure trove. But as I say, you had to get it right because you know you wanted other people to pick up on it. But as I say, now it's hard to comprehend just how fast moving it was. You know, like over the first 5 or 6 years, you went through like 5-6 different total style changes, hairs, you know, for labels, and it was brilliant because like, every week you didn't know what was going to happen.
What was the reaction from the general football fans or the Motherwell support that weren't the casuals? Were they looking at you thinking, I just can't get my head around this?
I always seem to remember that basically everybody in Mull was dead supportive of it because it was like they were really, you know, kind of making a name for ourselves if you like. You know, the infamous headlines and stuff like that. But no, it was, Motherwell was known as a casual town. It's as simple as that, you know. So it's even some of the older ones sort of try to go down the route. But it was strange because we were all, you know, from what 15 to 18, vast majority. If you were older than that, you were kind of out the loop. If you were younger, you weren't allowed in the loop, you know.
Sure.
But no, it's, again, you don't take much notice at the time because it's just your day-to-day normal life. But true what it said. I mean, it's like without us, designer labels wouldn't exist. You know, you wouldn't have Ralph Lauren, Armani, and stuff like that. We were the ones that actually got it before it was popular to do it.
This is something that I think is really vital and important to touch on, right? Because at first, I would imagine we've seen this over the years with Burberry trying to distance themselves from when people, you know, down south or even in Scotland are wearing the skip caps, you know, or we don't want associated with these working class people for council estates. But I think now brands are beginning to realise, hold on now, that's our target market.
Totally. And perfect case in point is Adidas with the special range. You know, it's so football orientated, it's unbelievable. The guys that are running it come from like a football background. Obviously the Stone Island thing is absolutely huge. But I mean, back like late 80s, early 90s, very few people even knew what Stone Island was. Never mind Massimo Osti or CP Company or anything like that. It was just a very expensive, exclusive brand. And then when football did pick up on it, and then it went into the clubs, and then it just went through the roof, you know. Sure. But no, I mean, the Terraces had the potential to actually make or break a label. Yeah. You know, it's true. It's absolutely true.
You've had that experience as well, with you know your own personal experience with Aqua Scouting, more recently in the recent CP book as well. I remember going to CP exhibition in Blackburn. I was down. Aye, and I went down with my missus and I was looking through. I was like, that's Kerso in this book, and she's gone, who's he? And I was saying, oh, it's this guy from Bellshill. And she couldn't get her head around it. One page was you, and I think the next page or the page after was Noel Gallagher.
He was getting shot the same day as me.
Right.
It's a funny story. I mean, again, it's like true stranger than fiction. I have no idea how it came about, but obviously it's in the middle of the pandemic.
Right.
I got a phone call, and it was a guy who had basically done the I Use a Massimo Osti book.
Right.
Totally sound, and he's like, Kerso, yeah. And I've done a project for CP Company, it's 50th anniversary. We wondered if you would like to be involved. We're basically asking 50 people worldwide who have a connection to the brand to be photographed. And the original intention was to go to Milan, go into the CP archive, pick out something from the archive and have a little story about it and then get photographed. But the pandemic obviously put that on, and put the kibosh on that. So it went from being 4 days in Milan to a day in London, then getting a photo shoot in Shoreditch, and it was Noel Gallagher, myself, I think Ida Thorpe was there as well, who used to design for CP Company, and it was just bizarre. But what made it special from my point of view was I'm the only one in the book that got asked to bring my own stuff in.
No way.
Everything I'm wearing is mine.
Really? Yeah.
Everybody else had to choose
Pick for the
from
archive.
the archive.
Right.
And they specifically said, like, no, you need to bring, and that's basically the reason.
What
why
did you
I asked
take?
It's an aviatic kind of sample parka. It's like it's design's been used a couple of times, but it looks like a bronze. It always looks like a metal jacket.
Sure.
But it's a CP Company jacket, whereas like all the Navy Arctic stuff up to then had been Bonneville.
Sure.
And it was perfect. You know, it was like big funnelled hoods and yeah. And I said to him, why did you ask me? And he's like, no, we've been canvas opinion for like a couple of years, and basically your name kept popping up. I'm like, all right, okay. But that when they told me that, I was like, chuffed as hell, man.
That's amazing.
Really chuffed.
What do you put that down? I mean, you've been spoken about in these circles for many, many years, but how did you go for that wee guy for Bellshill and the Terrace to the one everybody talks about?
I'll tell you how it actually came about, and it's a bit of a shaggy dog story, but right at the start of like the internet boom, there was a couple of websites about which had message boards. You know, Terrace Retro was a guy from Liverpool who had this website called Terrace Retro, which was again just reminiscing about the great 80s. This is in the early 90s.
Sure.
But they also had a message board in which you could actually post up, and it was so funny because basically what you had was like guys from different areas of the country who had led parallel lives. You know, we were all the same age, we were on the same things. It just so happened that we were from different parts of the country. Yeah. And through that, you kind of gravitated towards guys who were the same mindset, same sense of humour, into the same clothes, still passionate about it, still going to football.
Same music taste probably as well, eh?
The music thing was huge.
Yep.
That's how it actually sort of solidified, because other guys in Liverpool, Phil Thornton, Steve Connor, who's also in the book, they were doing this thing called Partisan, right, which was a music night in Liverpool. So every couple of months we'd all just hook up down in Liverpool. And through that, basically it's like my circle of friends became these guys. And then you get Phil wrote the Casuals book. Yep. It was the first Casuals book.
It's probably the best as well, isn't it?
And again, it was... Phil was actually really disappointed. It sold so many copies, but his initial one was going to be so much more concentrated on the brands and the photographs and stuff. But the publishers they wanted to focus more on the stories and bit and all that. And it was basically a bit of give and take. And he did what he had to do to get it published. But he always said it could have been so much, and it would have been so much better, because he's such a brilliant writer.
Absolutely.
All the guys were. And through that, obviously it's like when you start posting on message boards, other people find it through you, and then they come in and you basically you can sort out the wheat for the chaff, and what you're left with is like a core group of guys who are unbelievably talented in different areas, you know what I mean? Guys with amazing jobs, brilliant writers, and it just kind of snowballed. It's kind of died a bit now, obviously.
Was that the same forum that turned into 80s Casuals? Or
that became, basically we went from Terrace Retro and it was Partisan Media, and Crooked Tongues was the trainer site.
Yep.
Crooked Tongues was huge, absolutely huge.
It's still on the go.
It was more geeky. I don't know if it is, but I mean, it was run. What's his name again? Cracking guy. He actually moved to America. He worked for Adidas, and that then became the site. It was more geeky, and then age casuals come along.
Sure.
And it was funny. It was hilarious because you get all these old school hooligans coming on, basically talking about, we done this or that, and then the guys that were just ripping them apart. Honestly, it's so funny. You did it every single day, and you were getting so many brilliant stories. And as I say, the friendships continued to this day. I mean, it was like been to so many trips abroad for 40th and 50th and stuff like that. Even at the point of like going to football and stuff like that. And that's basically everybody became known. More so through their names rather than their real names. It was what they posted as, you know. Yep. Guys like my mate Sean, Supergar 49. Honestly, some of the stuff he used to do. And we ended up even though I did one of the things we should do as well. Ended up getting gigs, like launching Puma Argentina.
No way.
Yeah, we did this from start to finish. And basically, you can keep this, I've got a few in this. This is basically all the guys writing wee
That's amazing.
bits and bobs.
From Anfield to Argentina.
The fabled
Oh my
Puma
God.
Argentina. These were a legendary chain in Liverpool that, you know, people say, they did exist, they didn't exist.
And you've done the launch for this?
I basically coordinated the whole thing, and I was given a budget by Puma, and they're like, we want to do like an old school fanzine. I'm like, no problem.
And that's exactly what this looks like.
It's exactly what it is. And the writing in it is brilliant, honestly. But you've got guys like Phil Thornton and Peter Houghton and stuff like that.
That's incredible.
I
just find it amazing, you know, that you went for these people who were demonised by the newspapers. You know, you were having a real influence in culture, in fashion, in music, all across the country.
Yep.
You know, and at a very early age, you were written off as thugs, as people that, you know, the dregs of society. And now look at this.
We said the internet did weed out basically the meatheads from the guys who are so intelligent, so talented, and you can't help it. It's like, I mean, it's your youth. It's like you love football, you love fashion, you love music. Obviously, you're going to write about it, you know. And as I say, that was the thing. It was like parallel lives. We were all leading parallel lives until it came to a point where we could actually talk to each other about it. Mm-hmm. You couldn't in the early days, but that's what gave us stuff to talk about.
You know, there must be people all over the country still to this day. You know, you've got these rivalries like Celtic Rangers, you have Motherwell FC, Manchester United, Liverpool, blah blah blah. Right? Yeah. The list is endless. But when you break it down, you take away the football teams. It's all people with the exact same interests.
Absolutely.
You know, they're more similar than they want to admit.
Yep. Again, even like Scotland, England, when was it? I'm trying to remember what year it was. Maybe the 2000 Euro playoffs or something like that. My flat in Bellshill, it was like, there must have been, I don't know, a dozen guys, half of them English, half of them Scottish. And it's like we all had tickets for the game, and it's like we all met up after it and all went out after it, and it's like, this is totally unheard of. Do you know what I mean? It's like guys from Derby, Forest. I used to go down clubbing there quite a bit. I actually had a season ticket for Derby County when they were in the Premier League. Aye. It was a stage, but I was going down south probably 2 weeks out of every 4 to go clubbing. I'd get the train down on a Friday night, go to Renaissance. Or
is that one of the big clubs down there?
Mansfield, the Renaissance. It was like,
sure.
I mean, it was absolutely huge. But then the Saturday afternoon, it was like my mate lived in Big Loy, lived in Ilkeston, which is half Forest, half Derby. It's right on the border. And I could have chosen one way. I ended up going to Derby, and it was again, it was brilliant. I did that for a good few years, going clubbing, football, and again, it's like you meet another group of people, and it's like, how do you know? Because Loy, I didn't even know. He was a scooter boy as well. He was in North Britannia, which was like the biggest scooter club in Britain at the time. He was running the things that we were going to.
And only later in life do you discover
we've been in so many places at the same time and didn't know about each other. Because again, it's like a huge part of my life was Northern Soul, all-nighters. It's like came for the mod thing. And started going to all-nighters, and for 10 years it was like a total obsession. I used to do the door up at the all-nighter up in Shorts. And
how connected was this?
Casuals on the northern scene were even rarer than casuals on the scooter scene, you know. So the ones that were there sort of gravitated towards each other. My mate Bernie, he was from Nottingham, we used to go and see Forest. Guys, Hibs, you know what I mean? It was like Edinburgh had a huge soul scene. A couple of the guys were casuals going with Hibs, and it's like, this get a bit dodgy, but it didn't, because basically you were into the same thing. You know, to keep it quiet, you know, you couldn't tell at the time. Like, I mean, this was still in the 80s. You couldn't tell you had mates for fucking Hibs, you know what I mean? That wouldn't be doing too well. But then, when Ricky started the whole street raving thing, he started getting to know guys from Edinburgh, and it's like, look, why do you want to come and end up? Like, just come and enjoy it, do you know what I mean? And, you know, for the most part it worked.
You mentioned a name there that I hope we'll get in the podcast at some point, is Big Ricky McGowan, who started Street Rave, still does colours to this day. You know, was involved with the Dressers book with you as well.
He was.
How did the 90s rave scene merge into the casual scene, and do you think that kind of diluted the casual scene? It took people away from it. It seems like you hear these stories of, you know, the drugs in the clubs made people a bit more mellow.
I don't know about mellow, but basically it was a simple equation. If you went to a club and you kicked off, you weren't getting back in. You know, with me, it was what basically went from like soul scene into like sub club. Sub club was notoriously difficult to get into, and when I eventually started getting in there regularly, I can say honestly, hand in hat, and I've been going there since 1991. Never seen a fight in the place. No. I mean, I've been literally, you know, don't know how many times, hundreds upon hundreds, never seen a fight in the place, because they knew it's like you just wouldn't get back in. So it's like, I mean, you could tell right away. I mean, all you have to do was look at something like that, fit the boy, you know, just for the labels and stuff like that. And then it started crossing over, you know, and I have to say just now, it's like I wasn't like big on street rave or anything like that. I was sort of still into kind of soul music, but where it did come together was at the weekenders, going to Southport, places like that. And again, it was huge in Motherwell. You know, Jimpy used to run buses all the time. Club 9 was the one where basically we did come together. Yogi's a huge influence on me as well, musically. And again, he was living through in Edinburgh, knew all the Hibs boys, had a bit of trouble with the Hibs boys. But it wasn't a case of like they just stopped getting violent because they were taking pills or anything like that. It was just common sense. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to ruin it for themselves and for other people. I mean, there was there are a few incidents that you could talk about, but you know, you're never going to get that amount of people of that age group together from different areas when there's not going to be trouble. Nothing to do with football or anything like that. It's just territorial rivalries, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It was again.
Did you do a bit of DJing yourself?
I've got studio, get the decks, records. Records are my biggest passion. It's not clothes or trainers. It's music.
But you don't collect records.
I do collect records. That's the thing. That's the only thing I do collect. Is records. I've got about 15,000.
Honestly,
yeah.
Good hell. I dread to see that assessment. It must be stacked up to the world.
It's the garage. I need to start going through them. It's like too many. I need to read it. But no, that was. I mean, that's always been the obsession. It's been music. Yeah. To the point of like, making pilgrimages to Detroit just to see, you know, where Underground Resistance and Jeff Mills and that did their thing. But the thing I'd keep coming back to is like everybody saying, it's like, it must have been amazing. It's like it's just your normal day-to-day life. You don't think you're doing anything special at the time, and it's like everything's brand new, or the music's new, or the clothes. It's just growing up.
Absolutely.
You know, it's only now that you can look back and like, that's never going to happen again, man.
No.
And it won't. It's, you know, it's like we've done it. It's like the quote I always use is like, we wrote the book, they're reading it.
Aye.
You know, because it's like, and you always want to say, you know yourself, they're going to the football and the different generations, they're obviously influenced by us, but it's like, you just want to say, I mean, I get tired watching the young guys now, honestly. It's like, my God, I love the passion, and it's like, I wonder if anybody's actually going to come out and sort of do something, you know, dress-wise or anything like that, which will basically get a wee shake-up. Because there was one point, I was looking at everybody and it was just like, I feel a tracksuit and a left tracksuit. It's like, come up with something new. But I suppose it's difficult. It's like you want to be accepted, so you wear what everybody else is wearing. But at some point, somebody's got to be an innovator. You know, it's got to move on.
Kerso, when did it become a uniform rather than a trend? Because you've touched on this, you know, you were changing weekly almost, you know, every few weeks. Oh, that's it now, we're wearing this. No, we're not wearing that tracksuit anymore, we're wearing this jacket. And now it's the total opposite.
Totally, yeah. And
why did that happen?
Basically, when there became big money in the clothes, it's as simple as that. Rather than us going and finding stuff and utilising it, you get places like Crews and Fraser and stuff like that saying, all right, all these fit boys are wearing this, let's bring in that label and push it to them.
Sure.
You know, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, that's only economics, that's fine, you know. It's like, if you realise you've got something that people want to buy, you're going to push it. But
I wonder what it was, you know, in people's minds where they thought, that's fine. You know, why are people know what you were and striving for something different?
Here's the thing, I mean, at which point did it become the norm for your mum and dad to actually know what a designer label was? You know, it's like know what, you know, Ralph Lauren was, or I don't know. I mean, there must have been some point where light bulbs were going off, and it became the norm for people to wear designer labels rather than the exception. You know, I mean, as I say, growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was like, most of my stuff came from like Wisher Market and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, that's it. It was an area where people were, a time when people were skint.
Totally,
you know,
absolutely. You know, you would come and feel like 3-star jumpers and like platforms and parallels. You know, the fashion that time forgot. To this big new world.
It disappoints me a bit, you know. We're probably all guilty at my generation. You go to Football Saturday, you go to a gig, and so many people are wearing the exact same thing. I think there still is that one-upmanship, but the internet's got a huge part to play in that. You know, you can't really find stuff now that other people don't have, unless you really go searching.
Again, it's like, and I feel like a grumpy old man for saying it, but as you get older, your tolerance levels go down and stuff like that. People are like, oh, are you still buying? Are you still? No. But it's not true, to be honest with you. Somebody says like, I said, no, I've not bought anything for ages. And then I actually thought about it, and I still bought like 60 pair of trainers in like the last year and a half. But only because I was walking past size and I saw something in the window, and I'm like, oh, I like him. You never get out of the habit. But where it did change...
Only 60?
Where it did change for me was... The joy for me was always staying ahead of the game, and that's just the casual ethos as well. Guys, like the guys I was talking to you about, I'd be speaking to like John Conley down in Liverpool and stuff like that, and we'd be talking, did you have a pair of such and such? Did you have a pair of such and such? Like, yeah, I'd love to get them again. And then when eBay came along, there was literally, basically about 2 to 3 years where it was shooting in because we realised what needed to be done. All these amazing trainers in Germany were getting loaded on German eBay, but you weren't seeing them because you weren't searching, because they weren't offering them for worldwide.
Got you.
They also didn't accept PayPal. It was always bank transfers, which is very expensive to do here. That was just their way of doing it in Germany. It was dead cheap. But we noticed basically if you sent them a wee email in German saying, I'd like to buy the trainers, can I send you cash? Always said yes.
Right.
So, I mean, literally for a couple of years we're getting stuff so cheap. I mean, it was like, these were like, amazing things, dirt cheap, and they always sent me sweeties with them for some reason as well, honestly. And then people clicked onto that, so that one died. And then it was like the next one with me was Japan. Japan was an untapped market, and they don't use eBay, they use Yahoo.
Okay.
Right? But you're looking on these websites, you're seeing these pictures, like, oh my God, you get them. A guy down in London offered a service where he would bid on your behalf. In Japanese, you tell him how much you were prepared to go to, he charged you 15%. Even once you factored in the quite expensive shipping costs, you were just getting stuff that nobody else had. Absolutely nobody else had. I had a good run at that for a while. And then it got to the stage where I couldn't go on my computer and bid on anything because people were just sniping me. They were seeing what I was bidding on and then just sniping me, just putting in a stupid amount. And then went to the last minute, So I was finding the stuff and they were buying it, and I just like, you know what I mean?
That's not what it's about, is it?
I know. Don't get me wrong, I mean, there were still things that you could do. It's like I used to love like going to Berlin for a weekend, going to Berghain like club and going in the flea markets and still buying stuff. And it still exists to this day.
Was it right with Adidas over there?
Oh,
right.
I basically was on the point of moving to Berlin because I reckoned I could actually make a living doing it for a while.
Right.
There was so much, and I knew guys over there like Quote and stuff like that. They were really nice guys, and that's what they were doing. And obviously Germany being Germany, like home of Adidas and Puma and stuff like that. And you could do it. I mean, there were so many flea markets, and that was just Berlin. I mean, there was other places as well. Used to go to Holland. Some of the things that you used to buy, it was weird, but it was like that was
exciting.
That was the excitement.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of got to the stage where it was like, well, you know, so other people are doing it, and then people get clued up and they realise that the stuff that they were selling was worth a lot of money, which is fair enough. You know what I mean? And the niche party was taken away.
Yeah, that must be hard for you now, seeing the prices that some things go for. Because you've probably got all that sitting in your house and you wouldn't sell it.
It's like somebody walking into your house and going through your wardrobe and going like, sell me that.
No.
Every single day I get emails, and it's like the Instagram thing. I've done it first, and like, I was using it as a tool because I didn't really know what I had, and I was posting up. People just automatically assume if you put a photograph up, it's for sale. It's not for sale.
That's mine.
You know, basically. And I'm actually getting to the stage now where it's like people offer me ridiculous money, and there will become a point where it's like, right, I'm not going to get a chance to wear these anymore. Might as well. I always look at it, it's my pension, you know, somewhere down the line, because I mean, there's absolutely no question about it. The clothes and the trainers and the record worth more in my house and worth more than I could earn. So at some point I'll do something about it.
On that note, before he came, I says, bring along some of your pieces that you know are really special to you or that you love, that we can talk about or you can show off. What have you brought with you?
Just to show you I had a little clothes label called The Healthy Obsession, right? And it was I loved it. I had a website and I was producing limited edition T-shirts. I got the whole printing process down off pat, and it was everything. It was going well. And somebody said, "It's like, where did the name come from? A Healthy Obsession?" And it was literally a conversation in the pub.
Sure.
Right? Like that. It's like you and your effing trainers like that. It's an obsession. I'm like, well, it is. But when I look at it, it's a healthy obsession. If I wasn't doing that, I'd be raping nuns or something. And the minute it was in my mood, I was like, oh. But it's like, no, but it's a healthy obsession. And it was a healthy obsession, you know what I mean? It was like something that I loved doing, but other people couldn't get the head around. But
well, this is the thing. No. I'm sure everybody's done these things as well, but people spend it in drinking, drugs and gambling. Would you not rather spend it in something that you've got to keep?
Totally. Absolutely. Don't ask me what I was doing buying a Loaded magazine in 2001. There must have been a reason I bought it. But within it, there was a fashion shoot.
Sure.
Right? And that jacket was in it.
Right, okay.
And when I saw it, I was like, man, that's amazing. It's
Digital
it's
camouflage
like
hooded.
It's Paul Smith, right?
Yep.
So
tell me about this. This is I love Paul Smith, right? So this Our Newbold.
Our Newbold
was it a spin-off of Paul Smith?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our Newbold, I think, was a Nottingham tailor or clothes manufacturer back in the day, and Paul Smith used it to do some of his different lines. So immediately, I love that jacket. Absolutely love it. Didn't have any details other than it was coming out next season.
And you look at the price out there, like 169 quid.
Here's the thing. It's like, right, where am I going? Who does Paul Smith cruise? Nah, I don't know anything about it. Eventually got to the stage where I actually just phoned up Paul Smith himself, and I was like, this digital camouflage jacket.
So this is the first time you've seen it, was in the magazine?
First time I've seen it was in the magazine.
Right.
And again, it's like, I think I've been down to London, went into Paul Smith and Floral Street and Nottingham and stuff like that, and they didn't know anything about it. So eventually I just phoned up the Paul Smith office, and it was the digital camouflage jacket, the Art Nouveau one. Yep. Where can I get it? When can I get it? And the girl with the mask in the pan was like, you can't. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? There was a problem with the actual manufacturing process. It's actually a reflective. See, when you photograph it with a flash, it becomes reflective.
Booms.
And there was a problem. So immediately was like, right, so it's not coming out. She's like, no. It's like, what about the one in the magazine? Like, there was only 3 jackets made. One's in the archive. The one, the photographer got one, and I was like, that still leaves one. She's like, yeah. I was like, let me buy it. She's like, no, you can't. I was like, why no? She's like, I don't know. I was like, well, find out if I can buy it. And she's like, right, okay, took my number, didn't get anything back. Literally phoned her every week for 6 weeks. Just,
honestly, yeah.
Every week for 6 weeks, totally annoying the hell out of her. Where's the jacket? What's that? And there was, I knew there was a jacket there. And it was like, they had one for the archive. And she's like, I've spoken to my boss, you can get the jacket. I was like, brilliant. And it was like 150 quid. That's what they charged me. And I got in when it came. But immediately I'm like,
nobody's got this.
Nobody's going to have that. Apart from the photographer, it was one in the archive. Subsequently turns out, right, unbeknown to me, there was actually 3 different colours of jackets made. So, that was the one that was in the shoot. That was another one. Now, the only reason I knew about this was because I got an email from a guy, and he's like, I work at Paul Smith in Paris. So we found one of the digital camouflage jackets in another colour in the warehouse. Do you want it? I'm like, aye. How much is that? I said, no, I'll send you it.
No way.
Selling it for nothing.
So you're the only person that's got the two of them?
I've not seen anybody else that's got this one. There is actually a third one, right, which I've seen a photograph of. There's one photograph of it on the internet, which is red. It's like, if you imagine Man United, red and black and white. And the guy, Casual Connoisseurs, Dan,
Aye.
he's going it.
Has he? Aye. And how did he get that?
I don't know.
Right, okay.
I think it was through a photographer or something like that.
Sure.
Because it's the actual photograph of it is in a shoot, and I was like, you might say it like, nah. If you ever, you know. But basically, I've since found out there was basically 3 of each colour made.
Okay.
So 9 jackets in existence, 3 of which are in the Paul Smith archive. I've got 2. So, you know, there's another couple floating about out there. Dan's got one of them. But the chances of bumping anybody in the street wearing it, and I still love it. You know what I mean? Even if there was 100 people wearing it, I still love the jacket.
How often do you wear it?
Oh,
all
basically,
the time?
well, if you've ever seen the Casuals documentary, I'm wearing it in that. Any time there's like something decent that I've got to dress for,
that's what you put on.
Yeah. Paninaro, I did a photo shoot for Paninaro. We wore that one.
Absolutely.
It's just, you know, to identify with it, and it's to see the chances of anybody else.
And what happened to the new bold stuff? Did they stop
it still kicks about every now and again. I've got another new bold polo shirt, but it was specific to Japan at one point.
Right, okay.
They actually had, I mean, everything was geared towards Japan.
Sure.
I don't know if that's still the case. I don't really know. But no, and I say that more, the story about that.
That's amazing.
It's just, you know, it's the mindset. It's just the mindset. Of
how many people are going to be phoning every 6 weeks? You know, that tells you all you need to know.
It literally was every week. And it got to the stage where initially she was angry, and then she thought it was funny, and then she was just resigned. She's like,
I'm getting him that jacket.
Exactly. You know, and look, everybody's got stories about that, about getting stuff. You know,
Yep.
basically everybody's got a wee myth story. And again, the trainers thing. This is the myth story.
Yep.
Adidas
What are
Cord.
these?
These are Adidas Cords, right? Now, first time I ever seen them was in this. Okay. Now these are the same as Adidas jeans, and everybody knew about Adidas jeans.
Yep. When I seen them there, I thought they were jeans.
No, they went on to become Adidas jeans, like 5 different versions, hugely popular. I'm looking at them, like, they're amazing, they're crying. I love Adidas Cord. So, through the Terrace retro boards and stuff, I'm like, hey, make a pair of Adidas Cord. And initially it was like, what are you talking about? It's like, and then I posted up the photograph of the catalogue, and then a couple of people saying, oh, I had them back in the day. I'm like, you get any photos? No, couldn't produce any evidence. So I was like, okay.
I think they're at it.
No, but didn't think much of it. And it was like, obviously just wasn't very popular. This went on for about 12 years. Basically me becoming more and more obsessed to actually find out the story, not even to get a pair. It was like, because nobody had them. Sure. Nobody had a photograph of them. Few people would say, oh no, I did have them. Like, well, you know, you say that, but it wasn't anybody I knew, so, you know. And then just...
and this is just for seeing them in this magazine?
It was like, they looked amazing, you know, and it was like these jeans. And again, it's just the mentality. I was like, I need to find out about these. And it became, that actually became known for it, because basically every now and again, like, I'd have a search up on eBay, but you know, because obviously you're not reaching everybody. No everybody knows you're looking for them. But the people who were that group of like trainer collectors or whatever, everybody knew it, and it became known. And Adidas Cord, and mythical Adidas Cord, and even to the stage of getting people. My pal Helen, she was basically head at Puma, and she used to work for Exposure, who were Adidas's PR, and she's asking questions, and nobody knew. And eventually got to the stage that I've just got to realise that
I'm not getting
they must have not come out.
Yeah.
You know, it was like they missed maybe, you know, or maybe even just come out for like half a season or something like that, and just died a death because the jeans were popular. And then just out of the blue, a guy sent me an email, and he's like, I've got a pair of Adidas Cord. I'm like, right, okay. Because the Adidas did do another one, which was basically a corduroy train of horrible skate shoe type thing. And I'm like, right, okay. And he sent me a photo. And I was like, Now,
who was he? No idea.
Guy from Yorkshire. Again, to this day, I don't know. It's just one of those stories that you couldn't make it up. He obviously, quite how he got my email, I don't know, but he didn't post on any of the websites or anything like that.
And they look brand new.
Well, now, here's the thing. It's like, my big thing with trainers, I never, ever paid big money for trainers. Never. You know, at one point, you know, it was like years before I even paid £100 for a pair of trainers. I just wouldn't do it. You know, I didn't feel the need to do it. You know, I know people were paying stupid money for, you know, things, and well, that's fair enough. That's what you want to do. But my enjoyment was actually trying doing things and getting them cheap.
Yeah.
These were the one pair of trainers that, no matter what he'd have said, I would have paid it. You know, just to actually finally put an end to it, like, I've got them. Because this was the thing, I was like, what size are he? He's like 7.
What's the chances?
Yeah. And then I just put it out there, I was like, what are you looking for them? He's like, I prefer a swap. anything you want. He's like, have you got a pair of Adidas Madrids? I'm like, what? The reissues that came out a couple of years ago? I bought 2 pairs for £20. I was like, yeah. And he's like, literally swapped them for a £20 pair of trainers.
You're joking. What is the chances?
Now,
but they Madrids to him probably.
Well, this is the thing. It's like I didn't even get the chance to say where did you get them, how did you get them. It was the moment had passed, and as is normally the way with these things. Once I got a pair, within a matter of months, Jay Montessori, the 80s Casuals, he turned up a pair. He paid big money for them.
Sure.
Robert Brooks, you know, Brooksy's like the collector for London. He turned up a pair.
Is he involved with specials now?
He said, yeah. Robert's in every. Robert's a personality. You know, right. Cracking guy. So it's the nicest guy in the world, honest to God. Ron Robert, God knows how many years now. But
they start popping up.
But no, to this day, I mean, it's probably still single figures, which is unheard of, you know. So
and these are for 78.
We issued them last year.
Aye, these are the 78 ones.
Yeah,
and they look brand new. Very
but
good.
I've been worn loads of times. The first thing I did was I actually wore them to, I think Motherwell playing a semi-final or something like that, and I wore it in Hampden. So that's the mythical story of Adidas Cord.
That's amazing.
Everybody knew about that, you know.
I love it.
And it's like there's so many stories you could write a book. And probably will at some point.
And I suppose to a certain extent you helped write the book with the dressers one as well. You know, the amount of your collection that's featured in there is incredible.
Yeah. That was a labour of love with Ricky, Matt and me. I must admit, it was like, I mean, it was full on at times, and there was times we thought we're not going to get it done, and then there was obviously the bad press, which probably the best thing that could happen, because we went back and revised a few things. And
really?
Aye.
Right, okay.
But I mean, it's nuts. I mean, Ricky bankrolled the whole thing, obviously, and even at one point it looked as though it wasn't actually going to get printed because it was in Latvia or something like that. It was getting printed. And then it sold it like that. They were going for like hundreds of pounds on eBay, you know. I've only one copy myself. One copy.
But you'd never part with it.
No.
You know, and I think this is the thing. Like yourself, you know, you know, your wardrobe, the Saturday Service, the dressers book. It's all now very synonymous with this scene. You know, it's really, really up there. It's the top of the game stuff. And for these wee boys for Bellshill and Terrace,
that's the thing.
You know,
that is the thing. It's like
that's what it all comes down to for me.
Working class West of Scotland kids. You know what I mean? It's like, it just shows you. But I mean, it's stories of that. You know yourself. It's like, you know, whether they're promoters or DJs or music producers. It's like basically it's like Maggie's generation, pull yourself up with the bootstraps, you know.
That's it.
You had to do it.
I think you'll maybe disagree, Kerso, but I think there's so many similarities now to what there was back then when you were coming through. You know, we're going through a time just now where folk are talking about cost of living crisis. You know, there's not a lot happening, but this area still has so many people who are punching well above their weight.
Totally.
You know,
yeah. I mean, it takes hard times to actually get people to do stuff, you know. It's like everything else, you become comfortable, you know. Yeah. It's like, I mean, I remember when I first started work, I actually done a commercial apprenticeship with British Steel, and I get made redundant. And it was like, I wasn't bothered in the slightest about that time. I'd done civil service entrance exams and moved out to London and worked for Customer Nights. I was like, London, great. You know what I mean? Now it's like, I'd be terrified. Yep. I would hate to be a youngster today, pure and simply because you look at how much money it takes to buy a house and stuff like that. Absolutely. It's frightening. Yeah. It's absolutely frightening, and there's so much competition for everything. But it's a very, very, very changed world from the one we grew up in. You know, like phones. I mean, it's I work in the city centre, and it's like literally the whole world walks with a phone in front of them.
Aye.
It's crazy.
If you could take one thing right for the 80s
Uh-huh.
and bring it to now that doesn't really happen or doesn't exist, what would you bring for your upbringing to now? What would be your advice be to...
So I'll be honest with you, it's got to be the whole social aspect of it, because when I was 16, 17, 18, living in Bellshill, there literally was 5 nightclubs, and we were at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Right? Don't know how we managed it money wise, but everybody knew everybody else, and it's like, you know, now it's like there isn't even a pub in Bellshill that I would go to.
It's a shame.
You know, totally. That's the thing. People are social on media, as opposed to literally talking. You know, it's like the whole Facebook friends, you know, your pals. You know, it's like, and that's the thing. It's like basically everybody's become so insulated. Yeah,
it's almost like the world is now smaller, but you couldn't be further away from people.
Absolutely,
you know?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like a generation of people who, or the else is that don't travel, they don't go places. It's like, you know, like,
they need to get them selling some trips with Jervy over to Denmark. Come back with a few pair of trainers.
But I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. You know, it's like, even the other week. At the puncture, I had to get a bus to Motherwell, and it was like, how do you do this again?
Exploring.
How do you do this again? You know, but you become too comfortable. And obviously, I think I'm at an age now where it's like I've deserved that, I've paid my dues. It's like the same with the football. You know, like you still going to football. It's a thought, and you still do it. You know, because it's habit. But it's like, it's getting harder and harder.
But there's something quite nice about still going to football games now and again and seeing the same folk you seen 30 years ago. You know, same people, still pals. Don't get me wrong, some have came and gone, you know, passed on, whatever. Some people just don't go anymore. But there's so many folk that you've grown up with that are still
best
there.
Times of my life, you know. It's not especially like the trips abroad, you know, and it's like all the stuff you can't even talk about, but it's like never to be forgotten. And again, it's like, I don't even know that those will happen again. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I'm getting to the age now where it's like, it was like 40th and 50th. Went to my first 60th of my mates.
Scary, isn't it?
In England. And it was like, you're looking at them, my God. And like, they're probably looking at me saying, oh God, you look old. You look old, you know. And it's like, it's a wee bit frightening. But nah, it's kind of, the one thing more than anything else I'm happy about is like we pretty much done all we wanted to do. It was like, because, you know, certainly my parents' generation, we moved on so much, so far, from the lives that they led in the west of Scotland. To what I mean, it's like obviously everybody of our generation is world travelled now. You know, and that more than anything else opens up the mind. So I think we had the best time in it, to be honest. I wouldn't like to be a teenager.
I actually agree with you. I agree with you. One of my mates, Keith, that plays in the band with us, he always says, you know, he's born a generation too late, and I think a lot of that strikes home with me as well. You know,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's still opportunities to have good times, but certainly no groundbreaking.
Aye, exactly. Maybe the best is yet to come.
I certainly hope so.
Touch wood. Keep them hope. Oh, Kerso, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, mate.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks to everyone who has watched or listened to this episode of the podcast. Please go back and check out some previous episodes, and if you've enjoyed it, like and subscribe. Cheers.